Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Next Era Wrestling Class. I am your host, Aaron Frobel, and if you're watching this, you may know me as Michael Elgin. And if you look into my career, you are going to see I went through some things that I had to deal with, and now that they've been dealt with and I was ready to return, I was in a car accident that unfortunately set me back in my ability to return. Now when I get back to the ring, I'm not sure if I'll be Michael Elgin. I may be someone else. But when I do return, I look forward to putting out the best work I ever have in my career. But until then, I want to pass on some knowledge to other wrestlers or even fans that want to maybe get a deep dive into what it is we're supposed to be doing in the wrestling ring. Now, I know when I say supposed to be doing, you might think that I'm trying to downplay the wrestlers that are active right now or undercut them or say that they're not good, and I'm not saying that. Wrestling, for me, the beauty of it is our performance, I'll say, because I don't believe in the word fake, and I think it is part performance, but it is part athleticism. I think it's a lot of things wrapped into one. And the beauty about wrestling to me is making people believe, making people feel something. And to me, the believability factor comes from making something that people know is a performance-based athletic competition look as real as possible. So a little bit about me and my fandom of wrestling before I ever started wrestling. I was born in December, and the pictures of my first Christmas have me sitting in the old LJN ring with my cousins playing with the LJN figures around me. It's something that I felt like I almost didn't have a choice but to love, like I didn't have a choice but to get into. And I started my career in 2002 at the age of 14. I began training and I was having gym matches. I then went to a better school and at 16, had my first real match in front of an audience in 2004 in Detroit, Michigan, for House of Truth Wrestling, who has a tremendous wrestling school in Detroit now. And if you want to become a pro wrestler, I encourage you to look into House of Truth Wrestling, ran by Truth Martini, as I think he does a wonderful job with the wrestlers he trains. And the Detroit scene has always been amazing for young talent, and with him running school and having seminars and helping wrestlers get work, I think that scene is only going to continue to flourish. So at 14 I started training. At 16 I had my first real match, I'd say, even though I did have matches from 14 to 16. And through my career I had the fortunate ability to take part in many seminars with many great talents from around the world. And throughout my career, I got to share the ring with some of the best talents that there ever has been in the last 20 years of wrestling. Even 30 years of wrestling, honestly. I was very fortunate to travel the world and wrestle with many top stars. I was very fortunate to be in promotions that had great wrestling minds in booking capacity or writing capacity or agenting capacity. And I really love being able to share that knowledge with young wrestlers. And what I want to start with today is literally how we would start the match. And I'm sure if you're a wrestler, you're going to know this. And even if you're a wrestling fan, you're going to know what I'm talking about, because I'm going to do my best to explain it so that everybody can grasp how I'm explaining it, that everybody can then utilize what I'm saying, and hopefully it betters your performances. Because a lot of the positions I was put in was due to being in front of the right people and showing the little things. And when I say little things, it actually ends up being very big things in the wrestling ring. So when the match starts, the bell rings, wrestlers often circle around. Sometimes they stay still and just kind of look at each other. But the question is, what are the wrestlers doing while they circle? The answer is you are gauging what your game plan is going to be. So you are sizing up your opponent. For instance, maybe you start at the feet. You look at their boots. Are they worn? If they're worn, that means they're experienced. Maybe you look up at their knees. Are they wearing knee braces? If they're wearing knee braces, they might have knee issues. Then you start to circle. What foot do they lead with? Do they dip a shoulder? Are they favoriting a limb? What is happening with your opponent during that time? So for instance, example, Look at Sabu. He often would dive at the opponent's legs to see how quick they were to get away. That's gauging how quick they're going to be. Can they take advantage of grabbing that leg? Or do they drop down? Do they have an amateur background? These are all things you can gauge just in the first 10, 15 seconds of that circling or staring at your opponent. You're gauging what your game plan is going to be. So let's go with something that often trainers will teach trainees very early on in the course, which in wrestling terms we may call the international or the universal. And for wrestling fans, it's often when they lock up, they grab the headlock, the person that grabs the headlock then gets shooed off, they tackle the person that they had the headlock on. Then we see a drop down, a leapfrog, often a hip toss, and we're gonna go with arm drag, and we hold on. Now, why I wanna go over this and why it's so important is that's something that many wrestlers have done hundreds of thousands of times. And they don't often put the detail on it that it requires to really look impressive. Meaning, the more impressive it looks, the more details that are in that, the more realism we can put on what we're actually doing. And that realism makes it look so much different to the fans' eyes. Often the biggest compliment I ever got was when people would say, fans specifically, I don't know what it is, but what you do just looks different. And different can be bad, but often different is good, because if you're standing out from the rest, you can get opportunities. So we'll start with the lockup. Now, your hand goes on where? The elbow and the collar. Now, the collar is important because often I see people with their hands kind of like this, where it's hanging on the shoulder there. You are not controlling your opponent. So let's look at amateur wrestling. They're scrambling, which is kind of like a tie-up. You know, they're reaching for each other's arms, and often one wrestler will grab the neck, because if you can control the head and neck, you control your opponent. So collar and elbow, right? Grab that. Now, you need to struggle there a bit, because what a lockup is, it's not just how we start a match. It's seeing who is going to start with the advantage. So you want some struggle there. You don't want it to be too easy. Now, it can be easy. For instance, maybe if me at 240 pounds is wrestling somebody who's 180 pounds, it might be a little bit easier for me to control. So there's not going to be as much struggle on my end. But my opponent, I would want them to put some extra emphasis on their struggle. And there's all different variations of this. You don't even have to lock up, because that might not be the story that you're telling, and that's okay. But for starters, we're just gonna go starting with the lockup. Then we grab the headlock. Now in this instance, how I'm going to talk about it right now, I would rather the heel get to the headlock. That doesn't mean that the heel has to grab the headlock first. It could be that the babyface gets the headlock. Then the heel tries to come up with a top wrist lock, but the babyface wrenches it. Then the heel tries to pick up the babyface in a belly to back, and the babyface starts struggling and wrenches it again, and we come down, and maybe the heel grabs the rope. Now, as we grab the rope, how we would want to position is not the babyface on the rope. You'd want to get it so the babyface is into the ring, so you're on the ropes as much, because here you can make it look and hold on to the babyface so they can't get away from you. By doing that, the referee will have to create separation. As the babyface, you want to act like, I don't have the headlock anymore, it's him, because you are following the rules as the babyface. The heel is making it look like it's you. He's got the ropes, maybe he's holding on to you. So when the ref slides in, the babyface is trying to follow the rule, the heel can kind of blow out and get the headlock. That's just a little way to do it. There's multiple ways. There's no one way to tell this story, to do this correctly, but that is a way to do it. Now the heel has the headlock. We can also have the babyface try to come out. Maybe we use heel tactics. Maybe we use the hair when the babyface goes for the top wrist lock. Maybe you get some shots and you give them a club and get back to the headlock. There's multiple different avenues to take here. Again, we're just going through the basics right now. Then, from the headlock, we would back the opponent into the ropes. Something I often see as a pullback, you want to put your body in front of your opponent so that when you push them, it's all your body weight pushing them back. It's just those little things, those little nuances that make it look like it is difficult to push your opponent back. Then when we open up and we let them go, remember your power comes from your hip. So your last movement should be pushing through with your hand and hip. Now, when I get into the wrestling ring, I'm going to also add videos of actual detailed body movements of these so you can fully understand. But I'm trying to really go in depth in the discussion of it if you don't have time to watch, if you want to just play this and listen. So when you open up, if you push through with your hand on the back and step forward with your right foot, the power coming from the hip, and that's in all athletics. If you look at a quarterback throwing the football, the power is coming from the hip. You look at a baseball player at the plate, it's coming from the hip. In the outfield, throwing the ball, coming from the hip. A golf swing, coming from the hip. All athletics, the power comes from the hip. Boxing, boom, right? They talk about Muhammad Ali, why he was so good and had such great knockout power, is he was good at drawing the opponent in, so he would use their forward momentum with his swing coming from the hips to catch them and drop them. So when we shoot them off, now that's also going to bring you a foot past the center of the ring. So after your foot past the center of the ring, if you grab your head, because a headlock is squeezing the head, you need to register that. This isn't a sell, it's a register, which is similar to a sell. It's just more of a quick, like, that hurt, I got to get back in control. Now as you step forward with your left foot to meet your right foot, that opponent will be right there to tackle you. So it looks like, oh shit, it caught me off guard. Then when we tackle, what happened? Yes, we bumped, but every move is a bump. Be careful with this. The opponents hit the rope, and the spring from the rope and their velocity had hit my shoulder so hard, I have now bumped. Sell the shoulder. That's also gonna be a little bit of a benefit to you to sell the shoulder, because automatically I'm gonna sell this way a bit. So as I sell that way, the opponent is either going to run here or this way. I'm going to drop down. Now, there's a lot of different things that people will say about a drop down. For me, the most believable thing is, if I have tackled my opponent and he is laying in a prone position on the mat, why would I then hit the ropes? Well, the ropes are used to project me, to add momentum to my body, to then hit my opponent. If my opponent is down, I may want to hit an elbow drop, let's say. So I hit the ropes. I turn to hit the ropes to run as hard as I can, and I hit those ropes. A drop down. What is a drop down? A drop down, often I've seen people, and I've had discussions with people, they say, well, they're trying to trip the opponent. No, you are not trying to trip the opponent. Now, you can trip the opponent, and when you do that, because people don't often see that, it gets a reaction. But you're not trying to trip the opponent. If you're here and they're hitting the ropes to hit you, their eyes are no longer on you because they want to hit those ropes with full speed. You are moving out of the way of the elbow drop, because as they hit the ropes and turn back, they have hit those ropes. They do not have time to do anything but step over you, because if they don't step over you, they will trip. Again, it can be used as a trip, but it's not a trip. Then they go over, that momentum carries them to the next ropes. Now think, as the heel, you've tackled your babyface, you want to hit the ropes to then drop an elbow, he has moved out of the way. What happens in your mind when your babyface does that? You get frustrated because he has now evaded your move when you want to drop that elbow. So it builds frustration. Now we hit the ropes. It's not often done, and it's okay, because it's difficult if you're not used to it. In my head, I now see my babyface getting up. So I, coming off those ropes, maybe want to throw a clothesline or a punch. So I'm coming and I'm throwing, but he jumps. I know if I punch him when he's jumped, it might be a low blow, I might get DQ'd. So I then duck, because he also jumping, he could be doing a Fez press. See? Multiple different variations here that we can do. He's going for a Fez press, I'm going for a punch. I'm either going to get taken out or risk a DQ, so I duck under. He's now leapfrog me. That builds more frustration because one, I am trying to get a move, but he's either jumping over or trying to give me the Thez press. I duck under, I'm getting more frustrated. So as I hit those ropes, I always hear baby faces stay in the center when you're doing your comeback. Let them come to you. We're going to discuss that. But you now have to cut off your heel before he can hit you. So you step closer to him. Do not stay in the center. You leapfrog, you go a quarter to him. So center, quarter, ropes. You want here. So as soon as he comes off those ropes, you catch that hip toss. Now, this is another register cell. It's the first move you have taken, heels. Register the back. Come up. As you come up, you turn like you son of a, and throw. There's arm drag number 1. Register the arm. Come back up. Throw number 2, but the babyface catches it and he holds on. Now, why would the babyface hold on to the second arm drag? Again, think of all of the emotions the wrestlers are supposed to be feeling, and wrestlers emote those emotions with your body language. For the heel, register the arm on the arm drags, register the back on the hip toss. For the baby face, it's a little bit like, okay, I'm getting my bearings back after he tackled me, after that headlock. Let's go, let's go. Now I'm in control, so I slow it down. I built the frustration on the heel to take him off his game plan of dropping the elbow, of throwing the punch or clothesline. I've caught him with the hip toss. That has angered him. He charges me. I've arm dragged him. That has angered him. I catch that one, and then there's frustration. That's why the babyface grabs that second arm drag and holds on, because now it's his game plan. Now he is in control to then set forth what he's going to do to move forward. What are you doing moving forward? That's up to you. But the objective is always to win. As a heel or a babyface, the objective is to win. Think of what you're doing, yes. But more important, think of why you are doing it. Before you even think of why you are doing it, think of what just happened to you and how would you feel about that happening to you. If you can project your feelings through your facial expressions and your body language, the people are going to follow along much clearer. And then we have them in the palm of our hands. That is what we're doing. I hear a lot of the cinema talk in wrestling. Wrestling can be a great movie. To me, the greatest pro wrestlers represent as if my favorite movie, the person that wrote the movie, the person that directed the movie, the person that edited the movie, the main star, the stunt person, and the stunt coordinator are all the exact same person. So imagine that undertaking of a film being one person. A great wrestler represents that. And if you do your job correctly, you will have people not only cheering and booing, but feeling what you feel and what you want them to feel. Thank you for tuning in to episode 1 of Next Era Wrestling Class. And I'm going to try to put out 2 of these a week and then add in some actual in-ring examples of each episode. I hope that if you're a wrestler, you've learned something or remembered something. Because as I said, a lot of this stuff is stuff that we might not even do anymore, or have done so many times that it becomes second nature that we forget the little aspects of what we're supposed to be doing. And that's okay. And if you're a fan, I hope now it's kind of opened up to how much effort, how much real work goes into what we do to be at a high level. It's a 24/7 job. Your mind's constantly got to be going. And the best wrestlers feel that way, live that way, and perform that way. And I think it's safe to say that all the wrestlers who have yet to make this their career want to make it their career. So please subscribe and check out the videos each week. And if they work out, leave a comment or just email me personally. I love to help out the next generation of wrestling to make what I love and what all of you love that much better. Again, thank you for tuning in to episode 1.